Enthusiastic, good preacher. He brings the message every time I hear him in church. And I know he's going to bring it today. This morning. Pastor Israel.
Good morning, everyone. Man, I got to say that I don't like introductions that good because then I got the pressures on, man. So if I let some of you down, which I think I am, I'll get you next time. If you're here for the first time, by the way, Brewline, and we invite you to come next week and every single week. Brewline just does a good job of bringing in some fantastic speakers. So if you like the way I speak, the good news is next week and the week after there'll be someone even better. Now, if you don't like the way I speak today and you're new for the first time, come back because there's far better speakers than I am and it only gets better. So it's a win-win situation for some of you and for all of you. Happy New Year to all of you, and we're going to just dive right in. Why don't we pray? God, I just pray that in these next few moments, would you give us the wisdom to understand what we hear, and would you give us the boldness to put it into practice in our lives, Lord? All of this we pray in your awesome name, Jesus. Everyone says a big amen. Amen. So, yes, as Brother George mentioned, I'm going to be here until I die, basically. That's the agreement we came to. It's a blood pact. Amen. Somehow God ordained for me to be here the first of the year, and so we just said, hey, let's just do this thing till we can't do this thing anymore. By now it's first Saturday of the year. By now you've probably heard this a number of times. You probably have even said it a number of times, maybe even read it a number of times. New year, new me. Right? How many of you said that? New year, new me. Or you heard someone in your family, you saw this online, new year, new me. And kind of pumps people up, and it's basically saying, forget what happened yesterday, forget what happened in the past. This is a new time for me to shine, out with the old, in with the new. This is what I've been waiting for. This is my chance to do it all over again. As Brother George said, you clean yourself off, and it's time to do it all over again. But I have to tell you something, and I hate to be the one to burst your bubble. It might be a new year, but it's still the same you. It might be a new year, but it's still the same you. You woke up the next day still looking the same. You woke up the next day still with that bald spot you've been trying to fight and cover up, right? A week later, you're still struggling with the same issues, right? A week later, you still have the same setbacks going on in your life. A week later, you're still at that job you've been trying to leave for quite some time, right? It's still the same you. New year, same you. Some of you still got that same pain in your knee. You can tell when it's going to rain because that knee starts buckling, right? I'm getting kind of towards you guys. I'm starting to feel it already, right? Or new year, but it's still the same you. Same gut. You woke up with the same gut. You were just facing the facts now, right? But listen, new year, same you, but that's okay. Because there's some things that I really believe we should not change. There's some things that I believe, even though it's a new year, it should still stay the same. And amongst those things are the goals that we set, not this year, but some time ago. Right? The goals that we set, and maybe not even at the beginning of the year. Some of us, at some point, we came to our senses and we realized, man, I got to change. And we made a goal to change. Some of us, maybe not this year, maybe a few years ago, you made that goal to get closer to Jesus and further away from the life that pulled you and almost into death and caused so much pain and hurt in your family. Some of you made the goal, hey, you know what, some time ago you said, enough is enough, I got to stay clean. I can't live my whole life high all the time. I can't live my whole life drunk all the time. I can't live my whole life angry all the time. I can't live my life unfaithful all the time. Right? And so you made that goal. Maybe not this year. You made that goal maybe a long time ago. Maybe when you were a teenager, or maybe a few years ago, or sometime last year. And I think that goal should stay the same. New year. In fact, I don't think our motto should be new year, new me. We should look in the mirror. We should say new year, same goal. New year, same goal. New year is the same exact goal. The goal hasn't changed. The year might have changed, but the goal is still the same. I want to read something to you in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, but I actually want to ask you to open with me to Nehemiah chapter 1, because we're going to dive into Nehemiah for quite some time. But I want to read Ecclesiastes chapter 7 just to kind of kick things off. In Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 8, this is the NLT version, but any other version is just fine. He says, finishing is better than starting. Finishing is better than starting. He says, patience is better than pride. Now, we don't have to be theologians to agree with this. You don't even have to be a Christian to agree with what the wisest man who's ever walked the face of the earth, second to Jesus, is saying right here. That finishing is better than starting. Because we know that we can all agree that there's no point to starting something if you're not going to finish it. And this is especially true for the goals that you have set in Christ. There's nothing good, nothing beneficial about incomplete goals in our lives. Come on, you know this. I don't know anyone that finds true satisfaction and complete fulfillment in things that are halfway done or left halfway done. No one says, yeah, half a paycheck. Come on. No one says, all right, hey, here you go, you washed half my car. Your wife doesn't say, hey, you took half the trash out. Good job, honey. No, you don't say, hey, my goal is to get halfway sober. My goal is to get halfway clean. My goal is to just get halfway out of pornography addiction. Come on, there's no true satisfaction. There's no true satisfaction in things that are left halfway done. Now, don't get me wrong. Starting something is good. You need to start something. You can't finish something you never start. And it takes a lot just to start something sometimes. Right? Sometimes we don't have all the resources. We don't have all the motivation. We don't have all the energy to start things. And starting things are good. Starting things can be difficult. But starting something doesn't really mean anything if you don't finish it. Starting something means nothing if you don't plan on finishing what you started. And this is true especially for those goals that mean so much to our lives. Starting is good, but finishing those goals are even better. And the reality is, if we don't finish what we started, come on, you know this, if we don't finish what we started, it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. For all those goals we set and how we got riled up and how we asked other people to keep us in prayer and the promises we made and the people we looked in the eye and how we took all of that energy to start something and then we didn't finish it in the end, it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. Now, there's some things in our lives that don't really matter whether we finish them or not. You have a lot of unfinished business in your life, and some of these things are insignificant. You can move on, right? All right, I didn't lose that weight. You move on, right? All right, my hair didn't grow back, so you move on, right? There's some things that if you didn't finish, okay, not a big deal. But there are some other things that if you don't finish them, it is a big deal. And we know these. These are the things that are very, very important in our lives. And things that have great impact in our lives. Like our relationship with God. That is the one thing you have to see all the way through. That is the one thing where these words hit home that finishing is better than starting. Right? Because there's no point in beginning a relationship with Jesus if you don't finish that relationship all the way through. There's no point in starting a relationship with Jesus if halfway along the way you walk away and you lose your soul. Finishing is better than starting. Now, beyond our goal, our long-term goal, finishing out this race in God that we started, there's some other important things, some other important goals that we set some time ago. Like getting our marriage right. Remember you set that goal? Remember you woke up and you said, you know what? I have to be that husband that my wife needs me to be. That my wife deserves to have in her life. Remember you woke up one day and you just came to your senses. You said, you know what? I have to be the father that my kids need. I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be like his father. Remember you woke up one day and you said, you know what? I have to be the grandfather that my grandkids need. Because mom and dad aren't doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Now I have to step in. Remember some of you set that goal? Remember one day you woke up after the high wore off? After you looked around at your drunken mess, holes in the wall, people you hurt, people avoiding you. And remember one day you sat down and I don't know where it was, but maybe in your car or when you woke up or it just hit you and you made that goal. That's it, man. I have to get clean. I got to get my life in order. I got to make something out of my life. Those are the goals that we have to see all the way through. Those are the goals where you have to finish what you started. They don't matter if you don't finish them. They mean nothing if you don't finish it. So I think this next question is worth considering, and I think it's even worth answering. How do we finish what we started? Because that's a problem. Because if we knew the answer, we would finish everything we've started in the past. So how do we finish what we started? Now, I believe we've all had great intentions, but intentions don't get us to finish things sometimes. Just because you have the intention doesn't mean you're going to finish it all the way through. Now, how do we see things all the way through? There are a lot of things we can do, but you cannot move and finish unless you have this one thing first. And that's called this, a burden. You need to have a burden. If you want to see things all the way through in your life, you need to have a burden. What's a burden? A burden is this heavy load. It's this really heavy load. It's this thing that moves your heart. It's this thing that just bothers you, that just sits on you, and it bothers you until something is done about it. A burden is just this thing that just wrecks you, that doesn't let you eat, doesn't let you sleep, that when you look at it, when you see it, oh, it just drives you nuts, right? Like and what's interesting is that this isn't anything that you have to go out and get. Some of you already have a burden. You didn't even know this. It's a thing that just drives you nuts. Like when you get home and all the lights are on. And you're like, oh man, this light bill, and right, that's a burden. You can't not have the lights on. You have to do something about the light. Or when you're driving down the street and you see a homeless man, and you can't keep going. Everyone else is going. And even when you do keep going, it wrecks you for the rest of the day. I should have done. That's called the burden. Right? And some of us, we have this burden already. Some of us, we have a burden when we see our kids doing the exact same thing we did when we were knuckleheads. And it drives us nuts. And we want to slap them across the face, and sometimes we do. And that's why relationships are the way they are. Because you have a burden for them not falling into the same things. Some of you have a burden for those family members getting out of the drug and the gang culture that's swallowing them up and just messing up the family and messing up their lives the way it probably did to yours. Some of you have a burden for those unsaved loved ones. It bothers you when you just talk to them and realize that they have their hearts closed off to God. We all have a burden for something. And having a burden is key to not just setting a goal, but accomplishing a goal. And we're going to look at why in just a moment. But listen, without a burden, you're not going to be as driven. And watch this. This is really important. Without a burden, good enough will become good enough. Good enough will become good enough when you don't have a burden. And when good enough becomes good enough, this is why that's dangerous. When good enough becomes good enough, you don't care if you finish the goal or not, because it's good enough. And a lot of us here are sitting here and we're okay with the fact that we didn't accomplish a lot of goals because it's good enough. Good enough became good enough. And then, man, that's a dangerous place to be in, because when good enough becomes good enough, you might as well kiss that finish line goodbye. You settle because it's good enough. A burden can make all the difference in seeing something all the way through. It is the absolute necessary ingredient when it comes to finishing something that you care about in your life. I'm reminded of a person in the Bible. His name is Nehemiah, that perfectly illustrates this point. Okay? Nehemiah, just to quick background. We're not going to get too much into his background, but quick background. He was a Jewish slave. Right, got himself a good gig, got into the union at the palace, right? The king of Persia. He was a royal bartender serving up drinks. He's the royal cupbearer for the king of Persia when the Israelites were in captivity. Now, let me just give you some background about the Israelites in case you don't know too much what's going on around this time. The kings that are several kings that are already come and gone, and the Israelites have been taken captive, and little by little the kings, because God begins to work in their hearts, the kings begin to let the people of Israel go back to Jerusalem, go back to Israel, and rebuild the land that was destroyed because of their disobedience. Right? In fact, 90 to 100 years before Nehemiah even came to the picture, there was this guy Zerubbabel that gets up and leads his people, and the king allows them to go back and they rebuild the temple. And then about 80 years after Zerubbabel, Ezra shows up. And Ezra goes back and he brings spiritual order and spiritual structure to the people there. And then 14 years after that, in comes Nehemiah. And again, he's just a Jewish slave, got himself a good gig, serving up drinks for the king, right? He's about 800 miles away from Jerusalem. And then one day, in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 2, now before we read this is why the Bible is so incredible when we get to read it. You're reading about something that happened thousands of years ago, and you get to read it in great detail. In fact, this portion is written almost like a journal. So it's like you're reading someone's journal right now. You're going to read Nehemiah's journal, what he was thinking, what he was feeling, what was happening. And he says this in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 2. He says, Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some of the other men who had just arrived from Judah. I asked them about the Jews who had returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. In other words, he wants to know a report. Hey, what's going on? What's everyone up to? Verse 3, they said to me, things are not going well for those who return to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down and the gates have been destroyed by fire. So he hears the bad report. Now, no one's doing that great. Things aren't the way they used to be. And then in verse 4, we read his reaction. He says, when I heard this, I sat down and wept. He says, in fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. See, this thing wrecked him. This was a burden that was developing in his heart. So much so that he doesn't just cry about it. He says, for days, this was the only thing on my mind. See, Nehemiah had developed this burden. It bothered him so much that his city walls and his city was no longer the same. And you might think, well, who cares about my city? It's just a city. But it's the same way you look at your family. When you say, man, my family is destroyed. And then one of your friends says, it's not that big of a deal. But to you it is. Or you say, things aren't that good with my wife. And someone might interject and say, things, it's all right. And you say, no, because it's my marriage and it's your burden. It's the thing that weighs you down. And it's the thing that weighed him down. It was a city that had been destroyed, and fortified walls that had been broken down meant this defenseless people. And this bothered him so much that for days he begins to mourn, he begins to pray, he begins to fast, and he begins to pray that God would allow him, watch this, because this is something that you guys have prayed in the past. He begins to pray that God would allow him to go back and rebuild what the enemy had torn down. He begins to pray wholeheartedly, God, if you would just give me the opportunity to rebuild and make whole again, make new again what the enemy had torn down. This was his goal. And this is a goal that you have set sometime. You pray, God, let me just go back to my kids. Let me go back to my grandkids. Let me just get another shot at getting a job. Let me get another shot at ministry. Let me just get another shot at sobriety. Let me get another shot at having the type of family that I never had growing up. And he begins to pray that God would just make a way for him to go back and rebuild what the enemy has torn down. Amen. And sure enough, 4 months after that, God moves in the king's heart, and he allows Nehemiah to take a group of people back to Israel to rebuild. And it all began with a burden. It all started with something that he cared so much about, and he let it marinate inside of his heart, and he let it mess him up. He didn't just ignore it the way sometimes we ignore it. Come on, some of us, man, we can be so prideful. We know we need to go back and ask for forgiveness. We know we got to make things right, but what do? Nah, I'll wait it out because I know they'll come back and ask me for forgiveness. That's how the game usually goes. Come on now. But it begins with a burden. He doesn't move that burden aside. He doesn't ignore the burden. He lets the burden wreck him to the point where it drives him to tears, and it drives him to sincerely pray, God, let me go back and rebuild this thing that the enemy has torn down. Come on. That's why a burden is important. That's why we need a burden. Let me tell you why. Okay, 3 things that a burden develops. Number 1, the reason we need a burden is because a burden develops passion. Burden births passion. Think about all the things that you've been so passionate about in your life. The reason you were so passionate about these things was because of the burden you developed for these things. And once you have passion for something, it's just as good as done. You're more likely to see it through. You know why? Because passion ignites action. Passion stirs us to action. Passion motivates us to take action. That's where that's where action comes from. Action that moves through and sees it all the way through comes from passion. It gets us going. Many of the greatest things we've done and many of the dumbest things we've done came from a passion we had. You had a passion. And that passion, man, you didn't care what was, you got it done. You got it done. If you had passion for it, again, good and bad, you had passion to get high, didn't matter what your probation officer was or who they were or what kind of house arrest you slipped out of that bracelet, house arrest, you got it done. Some of the dumbest things I've done as a kid, I was a passionate kid. And man, I can tell you, they would ask, how in the world did you even do that? We're not even mad, we're impressed. Came from passion. Passion makes us take action. Have you ever met a person that's passionate about something? It's hard to tell that person no. It's hard to stop that person. Passion comes from burden. And you know where burden comes from? Because let's take a step back. Some of you are like, well, how do I even have burden if I feel I don't have a burden? You know how the easiest way to develop burden is? Is by stopping what you're doing and taking a very good look at the state of your situation. That's all it is. Stop what you're doing and just take a really, really good look at the thing in your life. See, Nehemiah didn't just hear about the situation. They told him, hey, things are in ruin. You know what actually ends up happening? Nehemiah goes and he watches and he sees and he walks the entire wall and he inspects it carefully. He looks at the damage himself. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 11 through 17, it tells us that he does this. And we're not going to read that part. But see, some of us have some terrible situations going on, and you think they're not that bad because you haven't taken a good look at them. See, you think your addiction is not that bad. Yeah, I'm working on it, but it's not that bad. You think the rage fits that you have are not that bad. You think your jealousy is not that bad. Come on. You think your unfaithfulness, the flirtatious habits we have. Let's just keep it real. Right? New Year, same us. Well, we think some of those things that we're good at hiding are not that bad. That's why some of us don't ask for help. I got it under control. God knows my heart. Me and God are taking care of it. And we don't take a really good look at the state of our situation. But in order to develop burden, you want it to bother you, just sit there and look at yourself in the mirror. Sit there and just look at the state of your marriage. I make the mistake once of trying to gain brownie points from my wife, and it backfired. I thought my marriage was good, and I went up to her, I said, honey, do you feel loved? I knew what the answer was. I just wanted, puff me up a little bit. Come on. And she said, you want to know the truth? I said, yeah, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And she says, not all the time. And then, right, and I was like, what? And that set me off, man. And then I brought out this long list of everything that I have done for her. And she said, yeah, but that's what's important to you, not what's important to me. And I left the situation, man. I know when to walk away now. And I regrouped, and I have this life coach, and I talked to him, real good man of God. And he said, yeah, you have to go back and you have to ask her what makes her feel loved. You have to know exactly what it is, what's important to her. So I went back to her and I said, hey, so about this whole rumor that I hear that you don't feel loved the way you should all the time. I said, when do you feel loved? How would you feel loved by me? And she said, no, I'm not going to tell you. You got mad last time. I said, I can take it this time. I'm ready. And I have my notes, my phone open in the notes section. I'm telling you, this changed my marriage forever. And I said, give me the list. And she said, well, sometimes, and this was his biggest one, I know you're a pastor and I know you have important, appointments and sessions, and I go on your master calendar and some of these people are written in pen. She said, I just wish I was as important as they were to be written in pen on your calendar. All right.
Amen, brother.
That was a good jab. All right, I took it. I'll write your name down, girl. I'll get it tatted right here on my neck. Better than that. And she gave me this long list of things. And then she said, okay, now what do you want me to do? I said, nothing. I said, the only thing I need from you is grace. Because I might not get all the things on the list right, but now you have my word and my promise before God. That I'm going to work on everything you told me. And when it seems like I'm not working on it, when it seems like I'm not doing anything about it, just give me grace because I am. And I'm going to take this list and I'm going to take it to my prayer closet. Me and God are going to work on these things. And we'll figure out how to get this right. And I don't want you to do anything in return. I want to be the husband that you, not only you need, that you deserve. And I've been working on that list ever since. Now, that wasn't in my notes, but that's for somebody here. You got to hear. But listen, you have to take a good look. Because if I wouldn't have stopped, if I wouldn't have asked, I would have thought that good enough is good enough. And hey, it's not that bad. Come on. We give ourselves too much grace sometimes. It's not that bad. Right? We keep it real with other people, but we don't keep it real with our own selves. We call other people out. Come on, didn't Jesus say something about a log and a speck? And to us, we always have the speck, they have the log, right? It's not the other way around. And the way Nehemiah, he walks the entire thing and he inspects it. And he lets the state of the thing wreck him even more. And some of us, man, we have to take that long walk around our relationship with our children. Come on. They don't talk to you for a reason. They don't reach out to you for a reason. Come on, they say what they say for a reason. Your family members are with you the way they are for a reason. Your friend, you have to just let it wreck you. You have to look at the reality of your situation. Yes, it is that bad. I don't care how much you've come, how long you've come, and that's great. You're 8 years sober and all of that. But there are other things. Move on to the next thing. There are other things that are bad. And we need to keep it real with ourselves. And so you have to let it bother you. You have to look at your marriage and let it bother you. The relationship with your kids or your family or your financial situation, your spending habits, the way you are online, come on, with other people. You got to let it just look and soak it in and let it bother you to the point where it brings you to tears. Where it begins to do something in you where you say, I have to do something about this. Amen. I can't let this go on the same. Jesus. And the bigger the burden, the bigger the passion you'll gain to turn it around. Burden develops passion. Passion is key when it comes to finishing something that matters to us. Number 2, burden develops vision. The reason the burden is important, it's not just because it'll give you passion, it gives you vision. A burden will let you see what could be. See, with Nehemiah, he saw a broken wall, but he knew what could be. That's why he was there. Not just to see the reality, but to change the reality. And to say, right now it's this way, but I know that if we could do some work, I know if we could go all in with this, man, it could be something far better than it was before. I love watching those home renovation shows, and some of you that are in the construction business, man, you get this. You show up to a pile of dirt, you show up to a broken situation. I love those shows because they take the couples, and the couples are like, oh, no, honey, right? But there's that one person that's casting vision. They're like, no, you don't get it. See, it's like this right now, but if you put in even just a little bit of work, man, I'm telling you. And sometimes they'll put it on the computer, and they'll show them that vision of what could be. They begin to inspire them. Yeah, this house is bad, and let it bother you that it's this bad so you can change it into something good. Amen. They have vision. They can see beyond what is right in front of them. Now, earlier, right now, the point before I said that passion ignites action. Vision reveals direction. When you know what you want it to look like, you know what you have to move towards. When you know what you want something to look like, you know what you need to move towards. Because you have the picture that's in front of you. And this is exactly what happened with Nehemiah. Nehemiah chapter 2, I'm going to read verse 17 and 18. He said, but now I said to them, and this is where he's gathering his people. He's trying to vision cast. He's like that realtor that takes in the people and they're looking at something broken, but he's trying to paint the picture of tomorrow. He says, you know very well what trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire. He says, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and end this disgrace. Let's do something about it. Then I told them about how the gracious hand of God had been on me and about my conversation with the king. They replied at once, yes, let's rebuild the wall. So they began the good work. See, this burden gave Nehemiah a vision of what could be. And then this got other people excited. And I think that's the next step for some of us. It's not just looking at your marriage. It's finally going and sitting down with your wife. It's finally going and sitting down with your kids, calling them up, or your grandchildren, or whatever broken relationships that are still left in your family. It's involving the other people and saying, hey, you know, I messed up, but now I have a burden. Now I'm passionate about this. And yes, it's new here, but it's not new me. It's the same me, but it's also the same goals. And that is to finish these things. So honey, let's make a plan. Look, I know I'm like this right now, but just give me a little grace because I'm working on it now. Give me a little space because I'm working on it now. Hey, son, hey, daughter, hey, I messed up. You're right, I messed up. You're right. You're right about everything. But now I think I can get it right. And just give me a little bit of grace, but I think we can do this together. I think we could reestablish that relationship. And I say this from experience. I had a broken relationship with my father up until about a few years ago. He was the most, he was the best provider I've ever seen a family have. He provided financially, but he never provided emotionally. And he never provided in other ways. And he showed me how to fight, because he was a boxer in the military. I wish he had shown me how to pray more. I wish he had shown me how to love more. I wish he would show me how to be more vulnerable to the people around me. I wish he would show me how to put the pride aside and ask for help when help is needed.
Amen.
And it wasn't until recently that we got together and we said, hey, things are awkward. Let's be honest. The furthest our conversations went was about the weather or the fight or the ball game. And after that, we didn't have anything to talk about. But we said, I think we could get this right. I think we could get this right. If you and I work on it, man, it's not too late. You could be the father I never really felt I had, and you can have the me that you never really had close to you. And we've been working on it ever since. Vision reveals direction. Once you know what the picture looks like, you know exactly where to go. But let me tell you this, though. The dangerous part about vision is that vision attracts opposition. Vision attracts opposition. The haters will come out of hiding. How many of you know the freaks come out at night, but the haters come out all day? This was the case with Nehemiah. The moment he riles them up, the moment he shares passion, the moment he shares vision, and they're all excited, the haters come out. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 19, we read that this guy named Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arab, they come out, and these are not just ordinary folks. These are prestigious leaders, military leaders in that region. They have influence. They have power. Their word counts. And it says that they came and they heard of our plan. They scoffed contemptuously. What are you doing? Are you rebelling against the king, they asked? And then from there, they make their life miserable. And they make their presence known. And they try every single thing they can to stop them from accomplishing this goal. See, they were afraid. They were established military leaders in this region. And they figured, hey, Israel used to be a power. If they come up as a powerhouse, that's a threat to us in this area. We can't have that. They try everything they can again and again. And you need to know this, that the goals you set, again, not this year, because you set some of these important goals years ago. The enemy has been trying to stop you ever since you set those goals. Once you had vision and passion for it, that's when he stepped in. That's when he said, oh, wait. No. Now you're getting up. All right, now you're on the treadmill. All right, now you're holding hands with your wife. All right, wait. No. Now you look like you're serious. Before, Brother George losing weight, now I'm not even going to get up for that one. Oh, wait, now he's dusting off the tamales. All right. And the enemy comes out to stop these goals. And that's why in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, and I think all of you know this, many of you know this, Peter says, stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone. And then that someone, that's you, looking for you to devour. And you need to know this warning that we cannot afford to take lightly. This is a true warning. This is like when you as parents, I don't know if you did this, my parents did this to me, messed me up psychologically. That every time they didn't want me to go somewhere, they said someone was there going to wait for me and take me away. Right? In their case, it was La Llorona, right? Boogeyman. And then when I got older and I didn't care about La Llorona, Boogeyman, they said, oh, the police is going to be there. Oh, that's why now, your parents did some of that to you too. That's why whenever a cop shows up, your heart just starts beating. You didn't do anything wrong. You're on the good side now, right? Cop pulls right behind you. Oh man, you're already thinking it's me. Hey, okay, tags are good. What's that position? 10 and 2. All right, let me go put on your seatbelt right now. Come on, right? It's that paranoia. You're good, but all right. Tags are paid off. All right, I'll pass the breathalyzer. That's just mouthwash, officer. Come on, right? I'm not swerving. Turn signal, right? It's that warning we used to get. Watch out, watch out. And here we're getting that warning. Watch out, man. That enemy is far too real. And he's done more damage than you can ever experience. And some of you are experiencing that already. And you need to understand that your great vision has attracted his opposition. Your great vision has attracted his great opposition, and he's going to do all he can to make sure that you don't finish what you started. In fact, these are the two of the devil's most successful tactics. And interestingly enough, these are the same tactics that Nehemiah's enemies use against him. Watch this. The devil uses, and in this case, their enemy, they use distraction and discouragement. And let me tell you why those two are really deadly in the hands of the devil. See, 9 times out of 10, the devil has gotten you to stop. And the way he's gotten you to stop is either through distraction or discouragement. Because distraction keeps you working, but just not on the things that matter. Distraction, let me say it again. Distraction keeps you working, but just not on the things that matter. Come on, some of you are just trying to make that money.
Amen.
You're distracted, right? And I preached a sermon a few years ago, and it sticks with me. It's at the front of my mind. If you die and you show up to your own funeral, what do you want someone close to you to say, right? And I think that all of us would want to hear something about our faithfulness, our love for God, our help in the community. We could care less if someone stood up there and said, they had 6-figure income. The thing that I remember the most as my father is that he retired with the union. Right? The thing that I remember most is that, man, 1% body fat. You should have seen the abs on my dad. That's the thing that I'm going to remember most. Now, we're not going to care about any of that. Right? We're not going to care about any of that. But the devil, he gets you to work on things that are not important so you can stop working on the things that are important. And then discouragement, which is the second attack, gets you to believe that the task isn't even worth completing. Discouragement. Some of you tried to start working on your marriage. You tried to get your finances in order. You tried to stay clean. You tried to stay sober. The list goes on and on. But then somehow he hit you with discouragement, and then he got you to believe that it's not even worth trying. I just get a new wife. Start a new family. I just get a new job. I just move away. See, distraction, watch this. Distraction attacks the mind, and discouragement attacks the heart. Meaning that your passion is attacked and your vision is attacked. That's why discouragement and that's why distraction are so powerful in the hands of the enemy. And that's why this revelation of our enemy in the Word of God should be worth more than gold. The Bible is telling us exactly how he operates so that we can be aware of this and have success in our lives. So we need to watch out, and that's exactly what Nehemiah and his team did from that point on. The moment that they show up and the moment that they start to cause this stir and try to get them to stop, I love this part in the story of Nehemiah. It says that they wise up and then they begin to work with a weapon in one hand and a tool in the other, just in case stuff goes down. Some of us who let's just be raw and real. Who grew up on the street? That's your testimony, or still is your testimony, trying to get out. But that's all you grew up with. Come on, put your hands up high. This is the one time you probably be asked in church to be like, yeah, don't claim the street or anything like that. You know, I wish that some of us, the one thing we would transfer over is that ride or die mentality before the things that we're focused on now. Because we had that mentality, and it got us locked up, and we were willing to do years. And we were willing to lose family. And we were willing to put it all on the line for that thing that we thought was worth accomplishing. And I wish some of us, we got soft, man. Some of us lost that drive, that passion, that determination, that mentality that says, hey, I'm working for God, but weapon in the other hand, just as stuff goes down. I'm not saying bring a gun to church, though. It's not in the literal sense. But that's that mentality, man. We're going to do our work, but we know we got an enemy, and we're ready in case the enemy shows up at any time in the day. We got to watch out. Because I'm telling you that vision attracts opposition. And whether you know it or not, your vision is attracted. And the greater the vision, the greater the opposition. So burden develops passion. Burden develops vision. And the last thing is burden develops determination. See, when something really bothers you to the point of just wrecking you inside, and once you have passion and once you have vision, you become determined. You become determined no matter what happens. I'm going to see this thing all the way through. You become fixed on the purpose. That's why Jesus was able to make it to the cross. He was determined to make it to the cross. Determination makes a huge difference. Now we said that passion ignites action, vision reveals direction, and determination paves the way for completion. Determination it opens the way for completion. Show me someone that's determined to do something, and I'll show you someone who's going to get it done. Now for Nehemiah, his enemies try everything they can, and they finally come to the point where they realize that these threats aren't going to work. So they try a different approach. They try a more cunning approach. They say, hey, let's just sit down. Let's just all be grown-ups about this. Why don't you just show up and we'll just talk, right? And we'll get some drinks and we'll hash this out and we can come to a happy medium. How about that? And this is Nehemiah's response to them. Now, before I read it, let me just say that this is probably one of the most powerful statements recorded in this book. And it's a statement that you can go back to again and again and again. In fact, I hope that this can become your slogan for 2019. It's been my slogan ever since I read this and studied this, and it hit my heart. It's one of my favorite slogans to quote to myself. It's one of my favorite slogans that I say around the house, and my wife will say it with me, and I'll tell it, and I'm teaching it to my kids. It's a statement that only a passionate person will make. It's a statement that only a person with vision will make. It's a statement that only a person with great determination will make. And this is how he replies in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 3. It says, so I sent messengers to them saying, he says this, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to it? And the reason that Nehemiah is able to give this answer is because he was determined to finish it. See, his goal wasn't to get the wall simply started and someone else will finish it. His goal wasn't to just get the wall halfway up. His goal wasn't to get the wall partially up. It wasn't just to get others to do the wall. His goal was to finish the wall. Not just to start the wall, but to finish what he started. And he was determined. And in a record 52 days, the wall is complete. Because he had this attitude. I am doing a great work. And I cannot come down. See, for those of you working on things that really matter to you, I'm telling you, distraction or discouragement will come your way. And every time the enemy comes to you, you have to tell him, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. See, when you're working on your relationship with God, and distraction comes, he comes, she comes, they call, they text, They send an email, and you look at it, and part of you is tempted to take the bait. Part of you is tempted to get distracted. Part of you is tempted to get discouraged. You have to stop. You have to recalculate. You have to say, I am doing a great work. Amen. I cannot come down. When the devil comes to you and calls in the form of a girl, a woman, hey, just drinks. Hey, just to catch up. Just to see what you've been up to. Right. Got to think about your marriage. You got to say, I'm doing a great work. Amen. And I cannot come down. Amen. That when you're working on your sobriety, because some of you are still battling with that, and man, that's hard. That's people congratulate you 7 years, 6 years, but just to get to 6 days sometimes, there's some heavy days we deal with. Come on. But when the alcohol comes, when the plug or the dealer calls or texts, or you run into him or them, or you're at the family gathering and they begin to bring them out, you got to look at them, and when they say, hey, you want some? Hey, come on, just a little. You got to remember, I'm doing a great work. Amen. And I cannot come down. I got to finish what I started. I didn't just start to get sober. I didn't just start to get clean. I didn't just start to get my marriage back on track. I didn't just start to get in connection with my kids or my grandkids just to stop halfway. That's not the goal I did, to go halfway. Finishing is better than starting. My goal is to see it all the way through. I didn't go to my wife and do all this charades and bring out my notes and have her be in tears and go back and just to stop, just to quit, just to be unfaithful so that at least I got halfway through my marriage. Hey, 10 years married, that's not bad. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. And I'm telling you that when temptation calls, that when lust calls, the pornography addiction calls, that when the anger, the rage, and you want to give them a piece of your mind on the freeway because they got into your lane because you own the road. And you got to remember, you got to tell yourself, I'm doing a great work. Amen. And I cannot come down. And I'm telling you, I'm teaching this to my kids. I'm teaching this to my wife. This is our battle cry. This is whenever we're focused, and whenever the enemy comes up and he brings something, we get that call, we get the phone call, where we get discouraged. If distraction doesn't work, he brings discouragement. We say, no, sorry, devil, but we're doing a great work, and we cannot come down. Amen. Do you want to finish what you started? Yes. Amen. Get a burden. See, before we can get passion, and before we can get vision, and before we can get determination and all of that, go back home and just look at the state of your situation. Stare at it for a long time. Stare at it. Talk to other people and get their point of view, how you've been. Am I really that bad? Oh, they're going to tell you how bad you really have been. They're going to tell you the truth. And you need those kinds of people in your life. Not yes men. That's right. Forget this whole God knows my heart. Come on, let's stop copying out with that. Come on. Take a good look at the state of your situation, at the brokenness of your situation. Let it bring you to tears. Let it bother you. Let it jack you up. I remember I met this guy in counseling. I don't know how long I have, by the way, man. I'm just like, you're going on, but I'm going to wrap this thing up, man. I'm just...
2020.
Yeah, that's a big mistake. Don't just say, just do your thing, man, because Pentecostal preachers just do their thing, man. Come on. I grew up in church. We were there 4 hours strong, man. See, you have to let it mess you up. You have to get into the reality of who you are and how things look like. And don't run away from it. Let it bring you to the point of tears. I was counseling this guy, and he just got out of jail, and he grew up in this church. And he just got out of jail for like the 5th time. Now, this is the part he doesn't know. We've been counseling his wife and his kids. And his kids are broken, man. They always talk about their father and how their father is not there. I remember one time we had this thing for fathers. It was for Father's Day, and just have lunch with your father. And he has a little girl, and she was in the hallway here, and they were trying to. Her older brother, which has now stepped in as the father, is trying to get her to go in, and she's in tears, and she's saying, "I don't want to go in." And he said, "I'll sit with you." Say, "No, he does this to me every year. He's never here." And she's crying, and she's 7, and already her heart is messed up. And she already needs counseling and encouragement and work on a 7-year-old because of one person's, one person's selfishness, one person's ignorance. And so this guy gets out of jail and he's sitting there and he's crying. And I'm just letting him cry. In fact, I don't have tissues in my office. This is a true story. My wife forces me. She'll put tissues. I say, no tissue, no tears. Take it like a man. And if you are going to cry, you cry all the way out, man. And so he's crying. And he's expecting me to do this there, now. And I say, I don't know what to tell you, man. I think you've heard it all. You've sat in so many sermons. You've sat in so many counseling sessions. I really don't know what to tell you other than your family's ready to leave you.
That's right.
And he's crying more. I said, I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that your daughter's probably going to grow up hating you. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that to be real. And I'm telling them. And your older kids, they already don't want anything to do with you, right? And he nods his head and he's just in tears. Now, my thing wasn't to break him. It wasn't to anything. I wanted to put it right in his face. Because I can't give him burden.
That's right.
I can't give him passion. I can't give him direction. I can't give him determination. It has to come from him. And he sat there crying for a long time. And I'm just painting the reality of the situation. And I'm asking him, so how long do you want to keep doing this for? You want to go at it a few more years? How long? And he says, I want to change. I said, that's great, and these words are great, but actions speak louder than words at this point. Your words mean nothing. I said, so if you want to change, don't show me. And I said, you know what, to be honest with you, I don't even believe you anymore because we've sat here so many times. It's time to prove me wrong. More than that, it's time to prove yourself wrong and prove your family wrong. And they're not going to believe you until they see you doing it.
Amen.
But I said, but how long? Look at this. Is this what you wanted when you were a kid? You grew up saying, I want to have a dysfunctional family? Is this what you wanted for yourself? When you're graduating from elementary and you thought, what's tomorrow going to look like? Is that what you pictured for yourself? A wife that doesn't want to be with you? Kids that resent you? Spending most of your time locked up, losing your freedom? I mean, maybe you did. Is that what you wanted? We sat there looking at we sat there walking the wall, the broken wall of a situation. And I did that with him so he could develop a burden. And then I saw the burden develop. Because I saw him on Sunday. I saw him on Thursday. I said, hey, you got to go to Brewline too.
Amen.
And I said, you got to go to any time you get an opportunity to get into the Word of God, you got to show up. You got to read the Word of God. But hey, you got to apply the Word of God in your life. It's food for your soul. It's direction for your life. I said, and you got to start simple. Don't try to change the world because you keep promising these big things. Do something small. Let's work on one issue. What's the issue? I said, I want to be there more for my kids. I said, then show up. Don't wait for them to call you. You be there. And I said, and guess what? They're not going to believe you. They're not going to believe you. They have no reason to believe you. But you give them reason to start believing you.
Amen.
And little by little, it's been a year and he's been building that wall again. And I told him this. Whenever the enemy comes, because he's going to show up. The moment he sees you get up is when he gets up. Your vision will attract great opposition. And when he shows up and he says, get high again. When he shows up and he says, hey, go back off into earn some quick money. You got to look him in the face. You got to say, I'm doing a great work. And I cannot come down.
Amen.
Why don't we pray? Let me pray.
Hallelujah.
God, I pray for these awesome men. And I pray, Lord, that as we're sitting here, New Year, but it's the same us, Lord. We can try to vamp ourselves up, but we still have those same issues. Haven't gone away yet, and that's okay. Because we're working towards them. And I pray that every single goal that has been set, that you have birthed in our hearts, to get closer to you, to walk away from that old life, to step into the new, to finally get serious about parenthood, about our marriage, about grandparenthood, to finally get serious about our finances, to finally go all in the areas we need to go all in for. I pray, God, that first you would allow us to develop a burden for these things. Because we can set goals, but if they don't mean nothing, good enough will be good enough. And then we'll never finish them. So I pray that in our next quiet time, in our next drive home, maybe even now, we will begin to get pictures, clear pictures of the state of our situation. And if we're negligent enough or prideful enough to oversee it, I pray that even through a dream or through scriptures, you would slap us in the face with the reality of our situation. Let it bother us. Let it wreck us the way it did in the life of Nehemiah, so much so that it says he cried, but not just for that moment. It says for days it weighed on his heart. And I pray that these goals, Lord, you would set a burden for them. To have that marriage that maybe our parents never had. Or maybe the marriage that our parents had and we just haven't been able to have. To have the father, Lord, to be the father, maybe the father we didn't have. But I pray that the sobriety, to stay clean, to stay out of trouble, to leave that life completely, whatever it looks like, help us to see a clear picture of it first. Take us by the hand and walk us around the broken wall so that we can develop a burden, not just to start the wall, to finish it.
Yes.
Not just to stay in this marriage for the next few years, to see it all the way through. To be the father that maybe our kids haven't had for a long time and be the father until you call us home. My God, I pray that burden would take birth today. It would grow and grow, drive us to our knees and to the point of tears. Only then do we know that burden will birth passion, vision, and determination. And I pray that our motto this year, our battle cry, our attitude would be, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. I am doing a great work now and I cannot come down anymore. Why should the work stop and me go and do those things? We're doing a great work and we cannot come down. And we know that by your grace, and by your strength, and by your leadership, Lord, you will take us to the finish line. And so we lay all these goals at your feet. And Lord, help us to see it all the way through. Because we know that finishing is better than starting. All of this we pray in Jesus' name. And all of God's people said, Amen. Thank you for being with me. God bless you.
Hang on, guys.
And I grew up in LA, and it's different.